Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of the Renewables podcast, and we are here at myenergi HQ, and we've managed to track down one of the founders of myenergi, Jordan Brompton. So thank you very much for joining us. But first, we've got an even more special guest because we've been making a bit of a joke of this. We've got Mark, who is also, you recognise as the co-host of this Renewables podcast. Here, how are you doing, Mark?
I'm good, thanks, mate. I'm still struggling away commissioning stuff day to day, as I'm sure you are, but otherwise I'm loving it.
Yeah, good. Well, we're in some very, very swanky offices now compared to where we normally are. You're not having to dig up where we normally are, but this is a massive upgrade. So we're going to talk to Jordan today about all things myenergi. So yeah, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. It's nice to have you on site again.
Yeah. I seem to have my own parking space here. I'm here for training and podcasts and all sorts of things. So yeah, thanks very much for giving us your time as well, because I'm sure you're very busy with all things myenergi. You seem to be all over the place.
It's all right. Well, I'm actually a fan of your work as well, watching you grow from the wee boy that you was when you first came and did your training to this social media mogul in the space. It's good, and it's really great to meet you, Mark, because I know you're well respected in the industry and you've been fitting our products for a long time. So it's nice to sit down and have a chat with you as well.
Yeah, well, like I say, I know you're incredibly busy, and what we really wanted to get into here is just trying to find out a little bit of behind the curtain of myenergi and being like, how do you get this swanky office? How do you grow something from that little? I never actually went to the other old office, but I've seen photos of it of like a little. It was like a little retail unit kind of.
It was like
place.
a doctor's surgery. It was quite funny, and we was just in a little corner of it in Binbrook. So it was back in 2016. So myself and Lee, we've worked together for multiple years in the renewable industry. And I actually went to work for Lee when he had his previous business manufacturing a little device, which is now what our Ready device is, so the earliest iteration of that. And I went to work for him in admin and sales and met these, it's like 5 or 6 engineers just creating these little gizmos. And I completely fell in love with the industry. I'd been a crazy person before then, dancing, radio presenter, working in bars, working in education, went off, travelled the world, and I came home and I was like, right, got to get serious now, got to grow up. What's your passion? No idea. No idea what I want to do. And I was teaching Humber, and a lady said to me, we're looking for an admin support in Binbrook for this little tiny manufacturing business. And I was like, right, I'll go and have a chat. And it was to do admin. I was early 20, I think I was in early 20s. And I just hit it off with Lee straight away, and I actually fell in love with the whole concept of self-consumption, which is where our journey started. So Lee had gone from, his evolution had been a solar installer, thermal storage installer, and then he was at a job for a customer where the customer had said to him, it's great having these solar panels, can't afford a battery because there was extortionate back in the day. Feed-in tariffs were great. It was actually, you got paid for what you generated anyway, so people were looking to self-consume. And he said, it's all well and good having these solar panels fitted, but what am I supposed to do when I'm out at work and I'm exploiting all that power, because I get paid for it anyway, so it'd be good if I could use it. And Lee's brain just went ding, 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 because he was thinking, I'm sure I could just, the guy actually said, can't I put some power to the hot water tank? And Lee was like, surely that exists, because it's so simple as a concept, and he does what any sane person would do when he ran home and Googled it. Like, does it exist?
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with that whole story because he was an installer at the time, and he thought, I'm going to start manufacturing these devices, and he was literally hand soldering in themselves with another engineer. And when I met them, it was like purely in its infancy, selling to a few electricians, and I was like, I wish I'd been involved in this from the beginning. And we hit it off, and I started marketing it for him, bringing in some of their largest accounts, putting it in the wholesale network. So I was like driving down the road. Yes, Electrical was my first customer, because I was like banging on the door every day going, let me in, I want to sell you something, because I want to reach more electricians. So that was the early days. And then the solar coaster, as we know, goes, crashed, and his other shareholders wanted out, and it took him through the ringer. It was not a nice time. He tried to buy the business back, but it got bought out by a competitor, and he was only outbid by a few grand because it was a closed sealed bid. So he lost brand, he lost manufacturing equipment. Bless him. It was not a nice time. But in that sort of story emerged him knocking at my front door saying, George, you always loved this industry, you always said you wanted to be involved from the beginning. You grew it to what we couldn't ever believe. Do you want to join forces together? Only problem is I've got no manufacturing equipment, no IP, got to redesign it, no brand. And I was like, I had my own business at the time, but I was like, sign me up, because I loved that little job fully, and I was like, I will give you my entire heart and passion into this because I believe that much in the industry. And then when he said to me, I've got this idea for a car charger as well, I was like, mate,
gotta get this out there.
And at the time there was
Nothing out there.
nothing really out there, and no one was bothered about EVs. Like, Lee was driving around in an early Nissan Leaf that had 55-mile range. So it was like a real, he was a real visionary. And he also built into all of our products DSR, like demand side response and flexibility, like frequency response. And for me, I was just like, this guy is like a freaking genius, because I could see that in the future, how all these products will interlink, how it'll support the grid, how it'll bring energy security as a country, how it'll,
How long ago was that? We're talking
2016.
Yes, it's not that long ago, really, is it? From that to where we are now.
So literally, we set the business up. I joined him in the November because I was getting married and I wanted to not have any distractions. I was like, let me get married, I'll come start in November. So we registered the business in the June, and in November we started. And I locked him in a shed with the engineers and was like, and we'd put all our own cash in, so we was going to burn through that pretty quick. So I was like, just get the product made and I will, begin with the branding, start reaching out to customers. We built a data sheet and we started approaching them, and we already had a bit of a name from previous days, and I had some relationships. So I just started putting the feelers out, and we just built it and built it and built it, and started taking pre-orders, all self-funded, up until 2019, when we took on our investment from our angel investors, which was Terry Leahy, ex Tesco CEO, and Bill Curry, who's an investor in retail and tech and been in the stock market for years and years, which grew us even more.
It's unbelievable how all these kind of things just collide. Like, you could have taken that admin job, and the person you worked for was an absolute ass, couldn't you? Then you would have gone in a completely different direction. These products like the Zappy and the Eddy and now the Libby would just have not been there. And you kind of think that all those things have to kind of be in place for you to have that confidence in Lee's ability. Lee's have the ability that he has of looking that far in advance to look at demand side response and all the extra little bits that manufacturers have been playing catch up with, for quite a while. It's unbelievable. It's
for electricians, speaking personally, you'll always be myenergi. The first time I came across the brand was you. It was on the Electrician's Guide to Everything podcast. When I listened to you talking about it, I think this is something I've got to take notice of. So is that something that weighs heavily on you, that you are associated as myenergi, or is it something that you enjoy?
It's taken me a minute. So when I'm actually really, before I was painfully shy, now I'm a little bit used to doing this sort of stuff, but back in the day, I was really young, we were growing this business together, it's really intimidating. You're also I'm surrounded by people that I feel like know a hell of a lot more than I do, so sometimes I take a back seat and I'm scared to speak too much. But over the years, naturally, I think because I'm a female co-founder in the tech space, people want to hear the story and the journey. And one thing that I'm very comfortable with doing is articulating our journey and our story. Where I feel like sometimes it's harder is when, people can be quite brutal online, especially if I'm not because I'm not an engineer or something, it's like, what she know, or, I can get quite a bit of backlash, but it's worth it. Ricky Gervais said something where he said, if where am I going with this? Ricky Gervais said, would he change his career because there was going to be a few nasty tweets or vloggers writing some things about him? Would he sacrifice all of that for the success and the growth that we've had in the brand? So when I'm in my dark times where I think, oh God, I don't know if I can take this abuse online sometimes, I've got this whole other side where people are really genuine about the story and really inspired, and it has allowed this growth. In Grimsby, it's allowed employment, it's allowed so much. For the renewable industry, I think it's worth the sacrifice sometimes for getting. You're not going to have the success without some of the negativity. But it just, sometimes it's a lot for me to overcome because I'm not used to it.
No, I mean, just from my little venture on social media as a small electrical contractor and those hurtful comments, they burn so hard.
Mm.
And a lot of the positive stuff that is alongside that, you just take no notice of.
Yeah.
We've said this before, haven't we?
Why
That
is
it's just
that?
dismissed. We focus in on the things that are horrible. And
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't so much.
Yeah.
But just going back to the point about seeing you as myenergi, this is now a much bigger beast than just you. How
Yeah.
many people are in this company?
Oh my God, like we're over 300 people globally, and obviously we've got a C-suite, so I'm like CMO, so I'm looking after all the marketing, and up until this point I've done all the sales, the revenue, the customer experience, the marketing. We're trying to diversify more because there's better people out there for that role, and I can't be everywhere all the time, and the business is scaling. So, but we've also got like a COO, a CFO, a CEO, a CPO. So it's not just me like running the business, and we've also got a really weighty board, because there is a huge potential with this business, and it's already shown tremendous growth. So yeah, it's not just me making all the decisions, but obviously me and Lee as shareholders still have quite a big say.
Of course. You're the ones who founded it and are currently driving it forward, I guess, still as it was at the start. It's still you two pushing headstrong forward with the brand. And we look at it as the kind of UK market, but are you big around the world? I've no knowledge of that, to be fair. Is this something where you're big outside the UK?
Yeah, so GB will always be like, it's our home market and our most successful market, but we have had success in other markets as well. So we're based in Germany. We've got a base that's doing really well. I think we're about 6% market share in Germany and looking to grow that. We've got Australia, which is doing well. We're big in Ireland, and we've got an office in the Netherlands as well, in the Benelux region, so Belgium, Luxembourg and the Netherlands. And we're starting to venture out into some of the other markets as well.
I guess globally, we're quite a small little island. Where we are here out with the world is literally your oyster for this with who knows where it could end up, and that's the different stages of growth, isn't it? Because I guess when you started out in that shed, you'd be happy to have a little unit somewhere and maybe shipping a few thousand products, and then when you get to that stage, where can we take it next, and now you're here now, looking more widely globally, the board of people around you.
Yeah, it's also a massive, the industry is massively saturated with really big Chinese companies as well, and I think what's really nice, and we've had a little tour around the production area, is that to try and compete with China directly toe-to-toe is impossible with where they're at now. But to do everything that you can to fight them, if you want to be that aggressive, but to fight them and produce true products, not just badged up products that have been put in a bag in the UK, but actually literally make the PCBs, make the plastic, all these different elements, I think is really quite impressive, because it just has to be more expensive than just shipping that in from China.
It's like, look, most of the components that go in the products are made in China, and China, no matter what, is a huge force when it comes to this industry. And in like our batteries, for example, we don't manufacture battery cells, and China are leading the way in that. And we've got some of the best cells, we believe, on the market. So we can't do everything, but I am so proud of our manufacturing facility, and I'm glad you do say that, because our Zappi and our Eddy, our Libby controller, our Harvey is all manufactured here in Grimsby. And that's something that when me and Lee started, sometimes you get met with resistance, like, are you crazy? Offshore it, like, why are you keeping this it locally? But we're local to Grimsby. On a discussion off camera, there's not very many success stories in the north. There's not very many success stories for manufacturing in the UK, and it's just something that we're so passionate about. And you'd be surprised, actually, at how well you can compete and can control your costs when you're at scale. And quality. Like, quality is a big thing. So as we're releasing new products, we can run the first batch of it. We can, reiterate it if we need to. Whereas if you've got to go out to another market to get something made, you can't make those changes so quick, or if there's a problem, you can't deal with it as fast. So I find that there's a lot of benefits from manufacturing in the UK. But what we've always said is manufacturing local, because we've actually partnered with a third-party subcontract manufacturer for our other markets as well, if we ever need it, because the demand is like, sometimes it's so up and down, and it would be silly not to de-risk that either. So we're I guess it's a sustainable approach for everywhere that we play in the world, But this will always be our HQ, and this will always be our manufacturing for our GB market and for new versions of products.
There's someone who originated just from over the river in Hull. It's a place of poverty generally, this kind of part of the world, the northeast. And having something like this is a bit of a beacon that might attract other brands into the area. That tends to be how these things go. You never know, you might spark up a whole Silicon Valley in Grimsby. It could happen.
That was my actual brief when
was
we
it?
built
Is
this
that
place. Yeah, I wanted to build the Silicon Valley of the North, and that was saying that a bit tongue-in-cheek, but to your point, like, this was an area that's gone through quite like hardship, because we had the huge success with the food industry and with the fishing industry, and then that was destroyed. And you know, now we've got this resurgence of the green hub. We've got Orsted, we've got the Humber Bank, we've got the largest wind farm in the world on offshore. We've got one of the biggest solar
I noticed that on the way in.
parks,
Yeah.
and we are becoming a bit of a hub for activity for this stuff. And it's just so great to have myenergi as that beacon. It's not without its challenges, because it can be difficult to recruit, it can be difficult to upskill, especially in the engineering side. But we manage, because people understand the mission that we're on and understand the importance of it, and sometimes move, like relocate and come here from overseas to work for us because of the brand pull.
Yeah, because
it must be difficult to fund that. It's like,
bet.
you're starting out in your shed with yours and these resources. This is obviously going to involve investment beyond what you've got. It's how you even make that happen. I'm thinking as a really, really tiny micro business owner, if I was to start taking that journey, I would not know where to even start.
Well, that's the key point, is like we've literally reinvested everything back into the business at all stages. It just goes straight back in. And then we recently raised some cash, because the market is getting more and more saturated, is getting more and more competitive. So we recently raised the cash with EIP, a growth fund, to help us on that next transition, because we have just been investing our own profits into it up until that point.
one thing that I really enjoyed seeing was obviously everyone was really struggling around COVID, and all the manufacturing kind of stopped in China, stuff wasn't coming over, and I believe there was like because you're making stuff in Britain, did you re-engineer some sort of microchips or something like that here? It was like
no, so that wasn't, I don't know if that was specifically linked to COVID, it might have been. It was an aftermath from COVID, actually. I think it was where there was a silicon wafer shortage and there was a microchip shortage. And this is what sometimes people don't understand on the outside, is like, you have a product, but then if, you know, there's a microchip shortage, we had to redesign our products completely from scratch to work on a new chip, and that is no mean feat when you've already got thousands that are installed and you're running 2 chips, just to be able to keep up with demand and not to have your business killed overnight. And that was an aftermath of COVID. We had to deal with all that as well, and it was sort of at that point we came to a crossroads, like most businesses. Do you mothball the business, downsize and wait for this to blow over, or do you go, we've had so much success so far, we're on such a roll, we can't let this be the end.
I don't see how you make such a huge change to a product unless you directly control manufacturing.
Yeah, exactly.
If you were buying in all those components and suddenly those components aren't there, you haven't got the R&D, you haven't got the machines, you haven't got the space or anything. So actually, if something like COVID happens again, which hopefully it never does, but it might not even have to be COVID, it could just be a shortage again.
Exactly.
To know that you've got the R&D and the machinery and the knowledge within your company to actually make those big changes it must be quite nice to know that whatever comes at you, even though it was going to be difficult at the time, you've already gone through something like that. So to actually, you can just lean back on the R&D side and the really smart people in that area to rise to that challenge again.
Yeah, and they love solving problems. They don't love them when they hit like that out of nowhere. Or like, you know, reg changes last minute or something like that.
Yeah.
We've spent a lot of time over these last few years reacting, like a really successful product. We've got hundreds of thousands of connected customers now that we need to look after, warranty support. You know, like our support calls, they're not just electricians out on site. They're actually end customers ringing us going, you know, how do we work this, or how do we change this, or we want to download the app, or we've seen you've done this. There's a hell of a lot that goes into the business once you've scaled. Because it's all right when you're just churning products out and banging them out the door, but then when they start getting more and more, you get more and more connected. That makes the business a hell of a lot more complicated. But having that resource on site is literally unbelievable. That feedback loop all the time, whether it's engineering, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's customer support, whether it's an installer feedback. We've got everything happening within this HQ that you're in now.
Yeah.
It's not without its problems, I'm sure, but you've been challenged in ways that maybe haven't happened for 10 or 15 years. If you look at COVID, you look at that ship that got stuck in the... So look at the Ukraine war, and now we've got all of this stuff going off in the Middle East and the supply issues. You know, we don't see and feel that as electricians until we go to the wholesalers and say, right, I want a Libya or a Zaki. Oh, we ain't got any. You must feel that
oh my
all
God,
the time.
on such a painful level. And you can literally, you know, the markets, what we're seeing as well is like huge growth. We've had OZEV grants, we'd have, you know, the cars were selling left, right and centre. It's grow. And then all of a sudden, you know, the cost of living, the climate, you know, everything just changed. I feel like every point has been like sort of against us. Although we've had amazing winds behind us and we've done a great job at capitalising on it and growing, it's not been without constant
Do you get support
challenge
from like the government on any of this? Because you see a lot of the policy that they have around net zero and stuff. And I think that they support battery companies, something that's from up in Stockton and Bristol. I might be misquoting the government on that. But do you see any support coming from those places?
Locally, like our local government have been to see us and you know, are proud and support us. But in terms of like actual
I'm thinking of funding
like,
and
no,
cash.
not really.
No.
Not really. If anything, it's been like, but the way that I see it is that, you know, with the OZEV grant and things like that being pulled and the market's still growing, I actually prefer that because now it's like self-sustained. We've fell victim a few times of the government giving a little bit too much and then yanking it from under you, and it can really impact the business. So now I feel like we're in a different place than we've ever been in the renewable industry for sure. That it's just growing now off its own merit, and the cost of the tech is finally coming down. So I don't really, if the government decides to support British manufacturing a little bit more or help us a little bit more in terms of net zero, I'll obviously always welcome that, like solar on every new build, like as a definite, car charging on every new build as a definite, stuff around frequency response, demand side response, smart charging, like we're all for that, you know, and communicating and working with the government and the regulators and things on that.
I wondered if it was obviously putting investment into the grid side of things, if there was a link up there more with manufacturers like yourselves where they could spread that out a bit better to get better value for consumers, because a lot of the roadblocks with EV and PV is in that last mile.
I
don't think that's really been addressed very well at the minute. It's kind of just been, we'll deal with that. We're going to start with the grid first.
It's kind of easier.
It's
easier to get that low-hanging fruit of just putting it on every house that's got a double garage that can have a charger, and like you say, it's those last mile homes and customers that really want to make the transition, but their house isn't suitable for a charger or solar or anything like that, and it's such a hard thing to tackle. And there's probably no real easy answer to it really. But one thing that I was really interested in was, you mentioned about some challenges and what have you that you had as a company, and one of those has got to be kind of a bit of a slowdown on the EV side of things. So has that changed your view and focus as a company on what products you're really pushing, or is it kind of changing mindset in any of that, or what's?
So we felt that the slowdown in EV for sure on like the retail side, but it's not just EV. I think I want to make that clear, is that actually from speaking to our connections in the car market, it's the entire car market. So just sale of cars slowed down in general because of the cost of living crisis that was in 2023. It was particularly bad. However, there was still growth in BEVs. It was just more, we found that it was more through salary sacrifice and leasing because of the tax benefits and things like that. I think the market will bounce back, and Zappy's like, you know, our core product. It's still one of the most favourite products out there, and it's sort of like, it's the key into this renewable mindset for the mainstream, because I think as soon as they get a Zappy and they become very aware of their energy, and they see that app, they're like, I want that next bubble, you know, that pops up on the home screen, or actually now I want the solar because I've got this company car. I'm now thinking, how can I charge this the cheapest way possible? And I've seen Octopus are doing something with that tariff, and now I've seen OVO are doing something with that tariff. Like, I want in on this space, and I think that the momentum is there now. So there's definitely no change in tack from us. But we've always been a whole ecosystem play. But we obviously leverage the huge growth of the car market with our Zappi product, and was perfectly placed to sort of like capitalise on that and keep innovating in that space. And we've not even scratched the surface on that yet. Like, the growth in the next few years is going to be huge.
Yeah, and so do you see a deeper integration with, obviously customers, other products within the home, and also energy providers?
Yeah. So there has been a little bit of a shift in terms of like the market. So we're definitely now working with what we call like larger partners, which you'll have seen, like in some cases we want to deal with Santander, where they're starting to offer these products to their customers. We work with companies like Cinch because we think that the second-hand car market and things like that are going to be huge. So we've shifted, and we've also earned that right now, because we couldn't have spoke to these customers even 2 or 3 years ago, because we didn't have enough kudos behind us to be dealing with the big multinational companies. But now we've been established for going on our 8th year. We've got the backing that we've got the proof in the pudding with these hundreds of thousands of these products being installed and maintained. We're now looking at that next sort of like step up, sort of like another route to market with like the large partners. Is that what you asked?
Yeah, I think it definitely was, because
I went on a right tangent.
No, it's really nice to hear, because as installers, you kind of see a product not on a virtual shelf. You don't actually go in and see it, but you see a product on a shelf, and you're never too sure what is going on in the background with that company as to what the next thing they're going to offer. Because I feel like the renewables market is one of those markets where someone will release integration with this energy provider, then someone will release that they're not with that energy provider but with this one, and as an installer you're getting asked as to which one's the best. And so it's really nice to hear what you're looking at, like the second-hand car market, and connecting with other things in the homes. I personally feel like, from an installer point of view and from speaking to my customers, that it's going to be, over the next 5 years, it's going to be really what products integrate with the rest of the home. There's all this smart home side of things. How can I get my Libby to turn my washing machine on? And that isn't exclusive. I don't believe that is how.
Whatever you say. If
but
customers respond well, we'll do it.
but things like that, where it takes that thought of it from customers' heads, because we have the customers that sit, and you'll have it, Mark, they'll sit and watch the app, and then they'll go, turn the kettle off, or turn that washing machine on. Whereas then you get the other customers that are, nose to the grindstone, literally out at work, delivering or whatever, just not at home, don't have a spare minute in the day, that want that system to just be autonomous and just do its own thing.
Autonomy is key, and our literal mission is to remove barriers to a greener future. And I think one thing that we've done so well is just to make sure that we're sort of as agnostic as best as we can be to everybody in the market, and give consumers choice. So it's like not pigeon ourselves. We were the first to sort of work with Octopus on an EV Go tariff. We'll be integrating other tariffs into that, because it's not just one option for a customer. It always has to be choice. And it's like, if a customer has another battery storage system, for example, we might not, you won't get the benefit of being integrated with the whole ecosystem, and there might be some weird little things where your battery's fighting with the car every now and again, but we do try our goddamn hardest to put like workarounds in so that the customer has the best experience if they haven't chose to go down that route, or that the Eddie or whatever will work. Like, we do try our best, because we want people to be as off-grid as they can physically be, whether it's with an Eddie, whether it's with a Zappi. If it's with the full eco home, then great, you've got the full luxury. Whether it's with this tariff, whether it's with this tariff, whether it's heat innovation over there, like heat's a big part of our business, and that we're going to be looking at more and more as well, because the decarbonisation of heat is huge. So yeah, openness and removing barriers for the customer is certainly our main focus.
The myenergi electric boiler I heard there.
You never know what's coming, do you?
You never know.
I might just go rogue and drop a bomb and say that's happening. Do it, Elon.
I think the heat side of things is now not necessarily the missing part of myenergi, because you've got the Eddie which leans to that, but it would be so nice to see that bubble there of a boiler or a tank or, you know, something there to go, you know, you can now have all of this within the...
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Talking about decarbonisation, heat's the big one, isn't it? We're seeing the rollout of heat pumps everywhere. There's got to be an alternative to that that's realistic, I think, because it doesn't suit every home in our weird and wonderful country. We don't have the housing stock of our European neighbours, so there's going to be something else coming along those ways. But I get the same juice with those calls from customers about my car's drained my battery, because they don't want to have the app, they don't want to mess about with stuff, they just want it switched on and do what they ask for. And to be fair, myenergi does that better than most. You know,
the app is definitely the best thing about the products with like the ecosystem, because it's very, very easy to understand, easy to change priorities. You can see everything in one go. One thing that is difficult with some other kit we install is there's things hidden behind other menus and stuff. So that is a real victory with the myenergi products, because, you know, a battery, you're going to hate me for saying this, but a battery is a battery. It stores power. It's what customers love is how they interact with it. Yeah. And pretty much every single customer that I've ever fitted myenergi kit for, the app has been the biggest almost selling point for that piece of equipment, because that's the bit they are looking at. They're not going to see how great this install looks like and how it's what the app is doing and what the app is telling them.
I'm so glad you picked that out and noticed that, because I think sometimes we get pigeonholed just into being a hardware manufacturer, and that might be my fault with marketing sometimes, with being quite product. But this year is the app is a key focus, because it is a great app, and I do pull it out of my pocket every time when I'm telling someone about the ecosystem, because it just brings it all to life. We've just actually started a campaign with a new animation to push that out, because it is so good. And then and once you've downloaded it and you're looking and you've got these bubbles, and then you can see all your data, and then if you want even more in-depth data, you can go onto the My Account desktop and have a look. We're putting a lot of investment and a lot of focus on the software of this business in this next year.
Because ultimately that's where a lot of the integration will probably come with other products. It's all and this APIs Internet of Things, isn't it? And you know that is where this integration will be, and AI and everything has got a massive thing to say, a massive part to play to take that challenge of running this kit properly away from customers, because ultimately customers can cock things up as well, just through playing around with it, and it not working correctly. Actually taking that control out of customers' hands in some cases is actually really good, certainly if they choose to select that. But one thing that I was quite interested, because it's great hearing how good things are, but you must have challenges coming out of your ears.
Well, we touched on some of them. It has been, it's kept us awake at night sometimes, I'm not going to lie, and it's been super tough mentally at times, but it's part and parcel of it. I'm learning the more and more I speak to business owners. It's not just, we all got the same problems. You'll have the same problems on your scale as well. You always get faced with something out of nowhere that you wasn't expecting, and I'm now just starting to get used to that is just running a business, that is just life. You're going to be presented with challenges, and especially in an emerging market. I think we do have to give ourselves a little bit of grace sometimes that this is new territory. Although the renewables industry has been around for a while, this sort of EV world that's kicking off, the sheer amount of change in the marketplace, the pace of it, everybody I think in the industry is just trying
Did it feel different when you first started out, and it was just you and Lee, and it was your ride, your risk, if you like, your money?
Yeah.
It was easier to make decisions and not feel so pressured about it, whereas maybe today, when you know that you've got 300 people's mortgage, maybe riding on a decision you might make.
I don't like to think of it like that.
You've triggered it.
Well, I in my small business, I feel that.
I do as well.
A handful of employees, it must be daunting and pressured.
It's so the hardest thing that I've ever gone through in my experience of this business is having to make people redundant. That was the hardest time. Over all the challenges, that was the most brutal. I hated it, every minute of it, because you never grow a business anticipating that you're going to have to do that. But if we didn't do that, the way I think about it is that sometimes you've got to lose a limb to save the body, and hopefully one day some of the amazing people that we lost in that process can be re-employed when the market picks up. Like the market, we can't control the market at the end of the day, and there's certainly things that we've learnt along the way that we could probably do better. But you don't know that at the time. You're just in it, and you're making the decisions with the best knowledge that you've got at that point in time, and you have to react fast to changing, crazy market dynamics that you just cannot. With the best will in the world, we had literally some of the best people in London forecasting this market and what was going to happen, and you just can't. You can't control the market.
I suppose as a business of this scale that operates across different countries as well, if something happens in Europe, we obviously in the UK have it has an impact on us, but it also has an impact in Germany and Ireland and some of these other places that you're in. And when you get to a scale of what myenergi is now, it's like instead of it being trying to turn a speedboat to react, you're turning a freight ship, aren't you, like a container ship, to try and react to that, because there's so many processes.
You're like, you can't make the snap decisions that you could as much when you were hustling at the startup and you pivot and you dance it. Like you do have hundreds of thousands of customers, you do have hundreds of staff, you do have large overheads, you're in the middle of a new build in the factory, you're in this, you're in that. You can't just make that decision, but that's where our board really come into play and the experience from the board, so that it's not me and Lee taking the whole weight of it on our own and the pressure on our own, although we do, but the entire C-suite do, the entire team do, like everybody feels it on a cellular level because they all bought into this mission and journey, and sometimes it's hard to say that we're just scaling back that little bit so we can make sure that we're stronger to go again when the market.
Really hard choices to make out there, and I guess some of, I don't know the makeup of your entire board, but maybe some of the people who are in those roles are maybe more used to that if they've had roles at board level through their whole career, and you've kind of ploughed your way through the growth of myenergi and what you've achieved to get there with them, but you haven't sat through redundancies maybe in other companies where you have to make those tough decisions, so you feel that it's your baby in a way, this company, and you never want to see that roll back.
It's also in our hometown, so it just makes it that even more personal because you've hired people in your hometown. This just shows you the fast turn of events, but we sponsored the local football club in the height of the growth, did a deal with them to attract recruitment because we couldn't recruit and train fast enough. And then when the market shifts, that can weigh really heavy on you in the local community, rightly so, because people are just on this hype train with you and buzzing for it then to just, the market to slow down, like not fall off a cliff, but just slow down to what was predicted. You have to respond to that as a business because you can't just keep ploughing costs into it, hoping that it's going to be the same as what it was a few years ago and pick up. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a business.
It's getting your head out the sand in that time, isn't it? To actually look at what's ahead rather than just hoping that everything is going to continue.
And me and Lee, had we not had the board, maybe wouldn't have reacted. We probably would have tried to drag it out as long as possible because we're too soft, because we love everybody, because we don't want to let anybody down.
Yeah.
And that could have been detrimental to the business, but thank goodness that we do have that experience on the board who've seen this multiple times, who know what needs to be done. And it isn't, I think sometimes we get a hard rap, if that's the right saying, in the industry because we did grow so fast, because we were this success story that people in the UK, sometimes it's a shame, we like to build people up so that we can tear them down, so that then when they're teared down again, we can build them up again, so that we can tear them down. It's just a bit of our culture, whether it's in celeb culture, whether it's in whatever. Because I found that pretty much every business in the space was making cutbacks or redundancies, but it felt like sometimes we got that little bit of a harder time. But I guess when you're at the top of the market, there's people wanting to get in your place, and they're going to leverage whatever they can to.
It's the nature of business, isn't it? Just across the water in Hull, this Ideal Standard, Stelrad, who's a big boiler manufacturer, they've got a huge plant over there. They employ a lot of people in that town. My granddad used to work there, my dad worked there. They've had redundancy cycles for decades that just happen as the nature of the market rising and falling, and you'll probably see waves of that in your growth in the future, and who knows, in our Sam, if we end up with 20 engineers out there, we might have to make those difficult choices at some stage.
There's space just out there, Mark, for your
It is business,
building.
isn't it? And that responsibility must weigh very heavy, and it's easy to look at that from the outside and say things about what's happened, but when you're actually sat in that position,
it's horrible. And I don't want to get hard to it. Although I'm grateful that we do have, people that are experienced and used to this sort of stuff, I don't want to ever find that easy, because I see the real life impacts on the people that it's affecting, and I just think, if anything, it'll make every decision moving forward just that little bit more considered, even if the market's booming. Like, because I've experienced it twice now in the renewable industry. Once when all the feed-in tariffs were cut. Yeah. Because you can get sucked into thinking this is growth, it's never going to stop. Yeah. And then you can't anticipate a war, or the inflation going up the way that it did, and the cost of living. There's just some things you just can't. Yeah. So it's always baking the.
Again, much smaller scale, but we're fighting that now. Matty is trying to convince me to recruit because of the demand we've seen. And I'm like, well, we'll just wait on it a little bit, because I'm not sure the volume of work will be sustained for us to do that. From speaking to people like yourself, so I've had this knowledge of that boom and bust and all the rest of it. So I'm a bit cautious with that, because I don't want to end up in the position you're in. Maybe I need to take that younger mindset of my team. Well, let's just take the risk. What's the worst that could happen? Probably be all right. But it's the difficulties of running a business at different levels, isn't it? Obviously, you're huge, we're really tiny, but it's the same thought process underneath it all.
Yeah, I think it is, and what I really liked to hearing there was about not getting hard to those decisions, because what I've been victim to as Oval has grown, it's obviously nowhere near this, but it's grown in its own way, is that sometimes you can end up looking at that big meeting you've got with that new investor, to put it in myenergi's shoes, or that big customer that's hopefully going to come on board to bring it back to Oval, and you actually forget that the boots on the ground are the ones that get you to that stage of even speaking to those people, and actually to forget them is almost to only stab yourself in the back, because they're the ones that are talking to the customers, in my case, doing the installs. It doesn't matter if this big company comes on board and wants to use us for all of their solar panel installations. If the people fitting it aren't taking care and aren't speaking well about the company, then eventually that will catch up with you. And it's really nice to hear that is part of your focus, because it's so difficult to look at both ends of that, the growth and also the sort of sustainment of a really good feeling and vibe around the company, because as you grow, there's maybe a bit of resentment from people that knew you when you were down there in the trenches with them, and I'm sure there is still an element of that, but as that gap widens, as the company grows, it's so hard to deal with that.
You're so right, and it's in the growth of it and in the hype of it all, you can as well. You feel like, I can even remember feeling like a rag doll being dragged from pillar to post. And when you're being a rag doll dragged from pillar to post, you're not focusing. Like, I'm just talking about me as an individual, because as a business, we've always cared so much about our customers and what our customers are saying. But me as an individual who's grown this business from a little seedling, maybe took my eye off the ball, because I'm focusing on growing the business over here and keeping the roofs on over all these people's heads. And hopefully that you're just employing the right people to harness and take on that love and care for the customer. But I think like a big reset in terms of like, one thing I'm grateful for with the market slowdown, one silver lining in it all, is that we were scaling at such a rate of knots that things like that could go missed or slipped. I feel like we're now at a point where it's like a ginormous reset almost, where it's like get the foundations really strong. So we were just like grow it, plaster on that, changing process there, recruit over here, recruit over there, build that team. And we had a bit of siloed working, and it was difficult to make a decision, and we had opinions over here, opinions over there. Actually, the slowdown in the market has allowed us all to get back to what's the most important thing, which is our customer, to look at everything that we've done wrong in terms of like, not done wrong, just maybe done too quick because we were scaling, take out what doesn't work, readjust over here, get the foundation strong so that when the market booms again, we've got solid infrastructure. Because you've got multiple IT systems, you've got multiple ways of interacting with the customers, routes to markets that's changed. There's now hundreds of thousands of customers that you need to look after. There's installations that are wrong. There's the processes and the way that the business has to evolve is so hectic, like you wouldn't even believe. And you're trying to do it at such a fast pace that you can take your eye off just the fundamentals of what's important. And I think this last year has given the whole company and the leadership and everybody just that real shake of what's most important. It's always the customer. We always knew that, but yeah, we were busy over here trying to grow. Let's just.
It's one thing to say it, isn't it? But you can take your eye off the ball, and you can be saying the customer's always number one.
Yeah.
But actually, your heart maybe your head isn't necessarily in that, because you're thinking of these other pressing deals that you've got, or this machine that you need to get, or this whatever.
Or the market.
You're saying all the right things. Yeah, you're saying all the right things, and in your heart that is the right how you actually feel, but your head is being drawn away from that. And I know for us as a company, we've seen a bit of a slowdown in things coming in on our side, and that, just like you've said there, the reset is exactly what we're going through now. We are going, okay, we've this waiting list that we had has been, we've got through that now, and there has been a bit of a calming down on I think the cost of living has started kicking in, and things. There might be stuff that we're doing wrong as a company, but we're kind of using it now as to go, well, okay, let's take back to the point. Let's not take these customers for granted. Let's not take these waiting inquiries for granted. Let's actually just log back down and go back down and actually go, what is important.
Sorry, it's ringing through on my laptop.
Oh, right. Yeah. But yeah, we've had that exact thing, the reset. We've kind of gone back through to what is important as a company, what is going to make us convert more customers to users, what is the most important part of this business, because I think that myself, I took my eye off the ball a little bit and almost took it for granted a little bit that we had this big waiting list, and now we're kind of resetting that now to go, well, this is really important that we get this right, and we improve things. And I totally relate to that, definitely.
Yeah, it's the same. Well, having come into the renewable space from other areas of industry, we see that boom. I'm conscious of seeing what you're seeing now, Sam. I'm sure that will come. With maybe the aspect of just diving into it fresh in our local area. We've had a bit of a push that maybe won't be consistent. So it's trying to get those processes in place, much smaller level than myenergi. In terms of the volume of product you're getting out the door, what are you actually shifting week to week? It must be massive.
It's it's mad. Like, the team are doing so well at the minute. We're averaging about 1,500 zappers a week out the door at the moment from Grimsby, which is crazy.
Incredible.
And we sort of find on average that we connect around 7,000 units a month. On average 3,500, 4,000 in GB, and then the rest is around the world. So that's what we actually measure ourselves on, is those connected customers, because as the market's gone like this, we used to count just like products out the door and going to our wholesalers, but then that you don't know, because they're managing their own stock levels, there's boom in one market, there's something else going on in another. We actually just strip it right back to getting the connected data, getting the connected customer, listening to the customer and seeing the connection rates, and as long as they're going up and up and up and up, which they are, that's what we monitor, and that's how we manage our stock level. And
it's so interesting that I could speak to you forever about this, because it's so interesting, and like I said, I think massively different scales. I think both companies are at a bit of a mine and myenergi, again, like I said, massively different scales, are at the same.
It's still the same mental strain.
It is.
The same. You're still a business owner. You're still an employer. You're still in this space. So don't take it away from what you're going through.
Yeah,
as well.
I think it will come to every business at different stages, and there's something definitely that is relatable there to kind of resetting things. And that's my big take off from this. But I'd love to come back and have that conversation. Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
It was just to really say that, going back to the start of this podcast when we mentioned about taking in the negative comments of social media, I guess, if you like, that you should just be really proud of what you've actually achieved when you look at where this business is now and what you've done for this area. You should not undervalue that, because it is incredible. Outside of all the social media silliness that stuff flares up and things happen online and all the rest of it, just look at what you've done, because it's mint.
Oh, bless you. Thanks.
Yeah.
And thanks for sitting down and talking with me like long form like this. I really like it. It's nice to add context. It's nice to hear from you guys, because you have been such valuable installers on the ground from day one. I'm sorry that we had a little issue in terms of our product install. I genuinely apologise for that. But all in all, I hope, just for the industry's sake, that it continues to build and continue to have these conversations. I appreciate it.
I think it'll diversify, and I think it will continue to build in different areas. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. We've taken up a lot of it, and yeah, we really value that time. But Mark, do you want to lead us out?
Yeah, if you've enjoyed this episode, please do drop your comments in below, give us your feedback. If you've got any questions for our future guests, we'll be sharing those on social media, so please do get involved. We want to bring you into these conversations. As always, give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.